Hey everyone, this is Aaron. I will be taking a vacation, at least from podcasting for a while. I hope you enjoy these rebroadcast episodes from our Hall of Fame archives. Welcome to the E6S Methods podcast with Jacob and Aaron, your source for expert advice on Lean, Six Sigma, and performance improvement methods. In this episode number 13, part 3 of 4, we reveal the path to choosing leading metrics for projects over the more common lagging business metrics. We illustrate two tools that can be used to scope down to more leading metrics for your projects. Hey Jacob, how you doing?
I'm great, Aaron. How are you?
Jacob, I'm doing great. I'm glad that we're back.
Me too.
Today we're going to talk about leading versus lagging metrics. And this is the third part in our series on measuring the right stuff of choosing good project metrics. And just a quick recap of what we covered the last time. We really went through the differences between first pass yield and rolled throughput yield, and went through the definitions of those, and try to indicate uncover the hidden waste associated with typical business metrics of first pass yield and defective measurements, and how difficult it can be to push on the quote-unquote more accurate metrics of rolled throughput yield, DPU, and DPMO because of the tricky math involved. And today we're going to talk more about why business metrics don't necessarily make good project metrics, because business metrics are typically lagging, and good project metrics are leading.
What do you mean by leading and lagging? You're confusing me now.
So something that lags means falling behind. It means that once you have that metric, it's already too late to fix it. So you don't have time to adjust, to make an adjustment like a lagging metric, business metric. Say you look at a business metric quarterly. That quarter is already over. A lot of financial metrics are based on that. It is too late to steer the ship in the right direction by the time you see that metric. Leading metric gets closer to the process level, closer to where the actual work is getting done. It's not an exact match to the business metric, but it is maybe one of several leading metrics that are inputs into that lagging metric. And we're going to go through some examples to make that a little bit more clear.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so what are some examples of some typical business metrics that are out there?
Oh, I would say if you're a business that's into delivering products, on-time delivery is something that's going to be key.
Mm-hmm.
What else? I've seen customer satisfaction, so some sort of a rating scale or some feedback forms that's going to the customer. What else is going on? If it's a purely manufacturing facility, you probably, for the operation side, you might look at first pass yield, or like we talked last time, rolled throughput yield, if somebody's smart enough to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Again, for safety reasons, I guess some people keep an eye out for, workplace days lost or things of that sort.
You touched on the safety, you touched on some of the typical operations, and then there's, each area of a business typically has some metrics. So,
True.
Sales would have either repeat sales or that's how many customers bought more than once. That's not just a good indicator of good salesmanship, but also it's actually an indicator of quality. If a customer is willing to buy more than once. Net Promoter Score, which is kind of like a customer satisfaction score, and then there might be some new product development metrics. Well, this one is typical. New product percent of overall sales, and that's like on a certain percent of revenue came from products that are less than 5 years old. And now, talk about a lagging metric. We're looking at 5 years time, 5 years in the past to the present, to see how much of an innovative company we are. So these, in my opinion, everything you've mentioned, these are common business metrics, and they're all lagging. All of them are too late to steer the ship for some sort of course correction. So
what you're seeing by lagging is the fact that these things have already happened, and even by the time you say, for example, you're looking at end of first quarter metrics, because most of the business metrics are based on quarter or month end at least. you've already done the damage for the month. By the time you look at this metric, or you've already done the damage for the quarter, hoping it's damage. It might be great for all you know, but don't get me wrong. But you don't know what's happening till the end of the quarter, or till the end of the month, or till the end of the period that you're looking for. And you might, by the time you start analyzing and looking at these things and start to make decisions on it, you might be losing more time. So
exactly.
At the same time, you're also producing what you're supposed to be, or doing what you're supposed to be doing. So the issues are still cropping up, and you just don't have a way to address them.
Right. So for if these metrics were quarterly metrics, for about a month into the next quarter, you still haven't changed your behaviors, while you're, drawing up your plans on how you want to do things differently. And you've just added another 30% of much of the same onto the next quarter. And so it's really hard to change direction by these lagging metrics. And you really need to get back to what we talked about once before, is y equals f of x. Getting to the inputs, getting to those knobs that actually control these lagging indicators, and we're calling those leading indicators for lack of better term.
I mean, I think you can also call them as inputs, right? Inputs to what you're finally looking at. And
right.
Kind of like what you refer to, y is equal to f of x. And I know we've talked about this briefly before. What we mean by y is equal to f of x is your output is a sum of the function of all the inputs going into the process.
So, let's get back to our pizza.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do a y equals f of x of on-time delivery of pizza, late delivery.
Okay.
Let's do I don't know. Let's do a bit of a 5 whys. Or what could affect the late delivery? There could be traffic.
Yep.
Right. There could be it started late, like they didn't start making it on time.
We had a big backlog of orders coming in at the same time, so we had to do that. Mm-hmm. We probably did not keep our ingredients ready, or we didn't do enough prep early in the day.
Right? Yeah. Maybe we the hand tossing. Maybe one of the hand tossers called out sick, so we only had one hand tosser in there. Mm-hmm. Maybe we made it wrong the first time and put anchovies instead of pepperoni on it.
Oh yeah, the one you like the most. Or for all you know, the oven that we needed to cook was not heating up to the temperature we wanted it to. Mm-hmm. So it's taking longer to process it. We couldn't hit our ideal temperature.
Right. So those are all potential inputs to impact on-time delivery of that pizza.
So in other words, let's take one of them as an example. You might want to say if the oven temperature is something that's critical, you want to always monitor and make sure your oven's at 325 or 450, whatever temperature you say, so that if at some point you have a range, if it's going below 425 or it's going below 300, you're going to say, oh, I'm going to have problems now. I'm going to be starting to have results in delayed pizzas because now I have to cook these for longer. So that's what you're calling as a leading indicator.
Exactly right. You can course correct on changing the temperature of that oven early on, so that you don't have to risk a late delivery. So you have to give that pizza away for free.
Yep. Because otherwise you would have seen it only at the time of delivery. Oh, I'm more later for this delivery. Now you already can prepare. So maybe when you're even taking the order, you can say, today it's not going to be 15 minutes. It's going to be 25 minutes. Mm-hmm. You're already. If that's your business model, then you can already build it into that.
Right.
Make sense?
Okay. Cool. All right. So when we're talking about a Six Sigma project, we do want to drill down more into the leading metric, and there's a number of ways to do this. If you happen to have think a bit of a Pareto. You want to get down to the critical few that really drive that lagging metric. So let's go again for percent on time delivery, just in general.
I apologize for all the fire trucks going on. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, that's the wonders of Chicago. Yeah, we're you did warn me about that before, and I think we've heard it almost every time now.
Pretty much. Yeah, I live right on the one-way street where the fire truck has to go by, so I'm on the path. I don't hear it anymore, to be honest. It's except when I'm conscious that the others might be listening to it.
Doesn't wake you up at night?
Absolutely not. First 2 days, yes. After that, no.
Lucky you. All right, so in general, percent on time delivery. could very much be affected by turnaround time or throughput time through the process, right? The time it takes to produce one piece from order to delivery. And this is not the same as cycle time, which is only machine time, so we'll put that to the side. Throughput time and cycle time are not the same. Percent on-time start, percent equipment uptime. If your equipment is not running, you're not likely to reach your demand. Percent in-process yields, we kind of alluded that with the pizzas. Inventory levels, order entry error rate, that's mistakes on the order entry side. And here's an overlooked one sometimes, percent supplier conformance and logistics reliability, both incoming and outgoing. That's one that I've been bitten by a few times. Okay, so those are some examples of some leading metrics, and a couple good ways of finding out what's leading versus lagging, or to drill down from lagging to leading. I've looked at a couple different tools. One being the force field analysis. So for on-time delivery, what are the aspects of on-time delivery that are working against me achieving my on-time delivery percentage?
That's a good way to look at it. Yep.
Right. So it's basically all those leading indicators I just mentioned. It's the poor performance of each one of those leading indicators can push against the drive for on-time delivery. Poor throughput time, late starts, low yields, inadequate inventory, order entry errors, raw material back order, right?
Yep. And maybe for the folks who've not really seen what a force field analysis or a force field diagram is, it's mainly two sides to a wall that's pushing each other, that balances or keeps the balance in play. So what's, like Aaron mentioned, on-time delivery is trying to push the wall to the right. What might be the things that stops the wall from being pushed to the right or being better or increasing are all the input characteristics that could work against this idea or this concept of improving on-time delivery. And
right.
What is that? And depicting that in a picture is what's known as a force field analysis or a force field diagram.
It has its roots in mechanical engineering, statics and dynamics of moments of inertia and all that other stuff that I had to take twice in college.
And if people are still not clear on how this might be represented, please refer to the show notes. So we have a sample of this shown in there.
That's right.
You are listening to E6S Methods Podcast, brought to you by E6S Industries. Join us on our website at www.e6s-methods.com. Journey through success.
This episode of the E6S Methods Podcast is brought to you by me. That's right. No one is paying me for these podcasts, not even you. So do me a favor. Go to my website and check it out. If you see something you like and you can use, buy it. If you don't see anything you like, then don't buy it. But do send me a message and let me know what you would buy if it were available. Go ahead and check us out at www.e6s-methods.com. Thanks a lot. Okay, so what about, so we talked about on-time delivery, which is one common business metric. What about another common first pass yield, or if we're in a great company, rolled throughput yield?
All right. Opportunities to make a mistake is something. Maybe in-process yield is something we can add there.
Mm-hmm.
Standard work. Do we have standard work? Is the training effective for the standard work is maybe another thing I would like to include.
Oh, yeah. Yep, your people. Mm-hmm.
Let's say your preventive maintenance. Are you actively maintaining your parts? Do you have a schedule? Do you have a, or is it being followed to the expectations you have or the standards you want to be?
Yeah, that's a good point there, because we often measure percent on-time preventative maintenance, but does anybody really know why we're measuring it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not because we just love doing maintenance. It's because maintenance is what keeps these things up and running so that we can hit our long-term lagging metric.
Yep. One of the other ones I think you alluded to earlier is for first pass yield, it's definitely going to be what's going into this product or what's starting with the product. So suppliers,
mm-hmm.
whatever they're providing us, is that as acceptable quality we're getting? Are we getting a whole bunch of bad parts early on? If that's the case, then that can lead us to having first pass yield issues. So kind of looking at what's our incoming supplier conformance. One of the key things which get overlooked a lot of times is the capability of the gauge. Gauge R&R, a measurement system analysis, can sometimes also lead to first pass yield. Again, it's not necessary that the gauge is bad. It could be that your measurement system on how you're taking these measurements or how you're looking at it.
Right.
So constantly making sure the items you need for these gauge measurements or these standards that you're trying to compare against or test against, they are all within a particular acceptable level. You can do some sort of a analysis to make sure that they are also in play.
Mm-hmm. Right, you're right, because gauge R&R doesn't necessarily mean a bad gauge or a bad process. It could be leading to, it just could be a high variability and leading to false failures. Okay, and then there's always, how good is the design that came in before any of the processes were even developed? How robust is that design? Because that, if something is poorly designed, it's kind of you can hit your entitlement at without really reaching very good yields at all.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And what's entitlement again?
It's the best you've ever done or you could do without changing the process.
Right, and you can look at these, rather than force field analysis, it's also a snapshot of a fishbone diagram, much the same way. What are those leading indicators that contribute to a positive lagging indicator? And the only real difference between force field analysis and a fishbone diagram is the force field analysis is just anti-metrics opposing each other, and the fishbone is they're all pro arrows going in the same direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then real quick, keeping on the safety, days lost time. What are the factors or other indicators that you could use to predict whether or not you're going to have days lost time? And that goes back to training effectiveness again, possibly in standard work. How well are people trained in the safety use of machine? Percent hazard evaluation. If each piece of machinery or area, when you have a safety program, should be evaluated for hazards, job hazard risk score, and again, on-time preventative maintenance, because maintenance isn't just for quality and productivity. It's also critical for safety.
So Aaron, this is something that I have to deal with on a regular basis. Like you suggested, most of the metrics or business metrics are always geared towards the lagging indicators because that's what everybody deals with.
Mm-hmm.
But we are recommending always have a couple of leading indicators that help you drive the lagging indicator clearly.
Right.
What is the appropriate number of these leading indicators? Because I've been working with teams a lot nowadays. They feel like they want to measure anything and everything they can. And there has to be some sort of a number, or you don't want. Yes, having the data is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Having as much data is great, but when do you say enough is enough?
Right. That is a good question, and in my expectation, management will still look at the lagging indicators.
Yep.
And each department should provide management with those lagging indicators. But each level in the hierarchy drills that down into something more controllable on their level.
Or they should do
right.
that.
Yeah, should. Yeah, shoulda, coulda. Right. Yeah. So every with each step you go down in the organization, you should get closer and closer to a leading indicator. Now, there could be multiple levels of this. Some of these lagging indicators are worldwide metrics. Like annual reports. That's about as lagging as you can get, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
And those are aggregate of more, quote unquote, more leading indicators of everything else that happened in the world, which is aggregates of everything that happened, in each individual countries, and you keep drilling down, eventually to the process level. And if you get these down to enough leading indicator for an operator on a daily basis to know how that process is supposed to be running, and that gets into standard work, and it gets into control plans, But SPC charts, those are leading indicators of early warnings of things that could eventually affect on-time delivery.
Yeah, and speaking of SPC charts, I have to bring this up now. We've seen cases where, again, you're doing SPC charts on results that you measured after doing everything else done,
right.
Got done. So again, SPC charts, if not used the appropriate way, still ends up being a lagging indicator, not necessarily a leading indicator.
That is a really good point. Hey, let's see how our SPC did last month. It's a complete waste of time. Don't bother.
Exactly.
I know, except for when your customer really wants to see it. I understand we have reports to make, but you're right. Point by point, real-time SPC is the only time you're going to get the value. That way your operator can pull that and-on cord and say, something's not right here, Mr. or Mrs. Engineer. Please come and take a look so we can get this back up and running.
And I think you bring the other point is, again, when you brought the customer in picture, that's one thing I want to talk about a little bit also is the customers probably don't really care about the leading indicators.
Right.
So if you're ever leading a project, if you're ever doing something that's involving a customer or that gets reported out to a customer, that might be a case where you need both a leading and a lagging indicator simultaneously. The leading indicator would be for your operations team or where you're going to make the improvement, but what you're presenting to the client, what you're trying to show the client, where you're focusing on might be your improvements that are being shown in the lagging indicators. So, there are going to be many cases where, what the client sees is going to be the outputs, but as internal fixes that you have to do or you need to improve, you're probably looking at leading metrics.
Right, and that's true if you, not even just for customers, but also if you're reporting to executives. Like if you go to an executive and say, "Oh, we're improving our, training effectiveness," and the executive says, "Why? How's that going to put money in the shareholders' pockets?" Well, it was determined that training effectiveness was the primary leading indicator to impact our, plant yields, which is impacting our customer return rate. It is important, I think, on a Six Sigma project, even though we are drilling down to leading indicators, they still have to translate into a business metric.
Yep. Absolutely.
And a financial metric. Let's drill your project metrics down to the process level, closer to the inputs, so as to measure leading indicators of success rather than long-term lagging business indicators. And that's just so that you can course correct as quickly as possible rather than take a quarter or a month to make any huge changes.
And it also is going to point out to you, where are you in your process also? Are you, safe? It's kind of like, why do you want to measure your project and why do you want to do things? So, this whole comes down to, if you have a process, if you have a project, you need to be constantly measuring it. So if you have something that's going to indicate, is this process going in the direction where it should go? Is it ending up where it needs to be end up? If you have those metrics placed, these things would really, really help you become the ideal process or the best process you want to get to. That wraps it up. We'll keep this short and sweet. Keep it easy.
Short and sweet. Well, it's good because the last few were a little longer. So this way people can enjoy the rest of their commute with some music.
There you go. Although I preferred hearing my voice than music. I'm just kidding.
All right, Jack, we're going to sign off there.
All right, Aaron, have a good one.
Thanks for listening to episode 13 of the E6S Methods podcast. Stay tuned for episode 14, part 4 of 4, where we wrap up our Measure the Right Stuff series with project goal setting, the 70% rule of thumb. Don't forget to check out our website at www.e6s-methods.com. Journey through success.